5 years ago, I heartlessly broke up with my childhood sweetheart. I even told him I would never go back to him. The very next day, I flew overseas to study. 5 years later, I became a well-known doctor. And he had already become a rising star in the business world. I imagined our reunion countless times. But I never thought we'd meet again, in the ER. Jason Song slowly opened his tired eyes. He used all his strength to raise his hand toward me. I lowered my head so his hand could touch my face. After a long moment, I heard a faint laugh. He forced out a whisper, "Evan Lin, you heartless traitor." Jason's arm dropped, completely out of strength. He started coughing violently. Fresh blood spilled from his wound. I called out for help, loudly. Pressing down on the wound, I didn't dare loosen my hand for a second. When my colleagues lifted him, 2 energy bars fell out of his pocket. I recognized them instantly. They were my gift from 6 years ago. Back on that autumn night, when Jason was tutoring me in advanced math, I had handed them to him casually. I couldn't hold back my tears. On the way, I kept urging the driver to go faster. Inside the operating room, before putting on sterile gear, I called the thoracic surgery department to request combined surgical support. 7 hours later, the OR lights finally went off. A group of people surrounded me, talking nonstop. I collapsed onto the floor. "It's okay now. He's out of danger." Right after that, Jason was wheeled out. Everyone rushed forward to check on him. Nathan Chen and Lily Lin hurried over to support me. I waved them off. I still have patience. Then I stood up and headed straight back to the ER hallway, immediately diving into the next emergency case. It wasn't until 4 p.m. the next day that I finally had time to go to Jason's room. There was no one inside except him. Because of the severe injury and blood loss, his face was pale, and he was still unconscious. Jason lay there quietly, his breathing steady and calm. I placed my hand on his forehead, then checked the data on the monitors. Everything looked stable. I set the energy bars I picked up on his bedside table, right beside him. The massive workload had kept me awake for almost 2 days straight. I held onto the bed frame and sat on the small chair, just quietly watching him. After a moment, I finally stood up and left. A new week began. I did morning rounds with a few colleagues, including my supervising professor. Jason was staying in a VIP ward. He was awake, half sitting on the bed, still looking exhausted. His eyes never left me. Then stepped forward to check the equipment. Finally, I touched his forehead again, checking his temperature. Jason turned away, avoiding me. I asked, "How are you feeling?" He stayed silent. The air felt awkward. Suddenly, a weak voice broke the silence. Jason inhaled sharply in pain. His voice turned cold. "I want a different doctor." The people beside him froze, intimidated. No one dared breathe loudly. I stepped closer, chart in hand, one hand resting by his head. I said, "Hey, the ER is crazy busy, you know. You think I have time to babysit you?" He clearly didn't expect that from me. "If you don't want to see me, then recover quickly. And if you don't leave after recovering, I'll kick you out myself." As I turned to go, a thought hit me. I looked back at him, and calmly said, "You're old, your reflexes are slow. If you can't handle it, hire a driver." Right then, Jason looked like he wanted to jump out of bed and kick me, but I had already turned away. My colleagues and interns trailed behind me. The room fell quiet again. Not long after, my professor called me, telling me to come to his office. The moment I walked in, he looked up, face heavy. "What did you need me for, Professor?" In private, I still called him Professor. "What's going on?" As soon as I stepped through the door, I saw how serious he looked. "What did you need me for, Professor?" Outside of public settings, I always addressed him that way. "What's wrong?" The medical affairs office called me, saying they'd received a complaint, that when I arrived on scene, I prioritized saving the patient in bed 8 first and ignored the others, saying I opened a back door for him. Discrimination. Professor Liu looked at me like I'd let him down. I was so angry I laughed. I'd checked everyone at the scene. The critical cases were already handled by my colleagues. Only light cases remained. Except bed 8, he was on the brink. If I didn't keep watch and send him to surgery first, it would have been a death sentence. Patients and families don't care about that nuance. I could hear what he was implying. "So, what does the hospital want?" They said Ming Ting is suspended pending investigation. Professor Liu was helpless. "So I should have just let the patient in bed 8 die and walked away?" I probed. Of course, Professor Liu noticed. There was something unusual between us. "I'll report this to higher-ups." Hands in my lab coat pockets, I walked back to my office. On a normal day, Jason Song is bored out of his mind. He grabbed the crutch beside him, struggling to stand. The moment he stepped out, he saw me standing in the ER lobby, talking to a nurse, looking dead serious. A shout for help and a child crying made me turn around. I looked closely, a mother and her child. The kid was about 3. The mother was flustered. "Doctor, I think my son dislocated his arm." I knelt down, wiped the kid's tears. Felt the dislocated joint. It hurts, so you're scared, right? He kept crying nonstop. I signaled the mom to cover his eyes. Alright, let's play a game. Count a few numbers, and your arm will be fine. My hand found the correct spot. My other hand held his arm. Then a gentle push. Done. His mom thanked me nonstop, saying she hadn't even registered yet. I just smiled and saw them off. A nurse spotted Jason nearby. Bed 8. Why are you out of bed? I turned back immediately. Jason, leaning on his crutch, panicked, trying to run away. He didn't want me to know he was watching me, so he hurried. Of course, he fell, hitting his barely healed injury. I rushed to help him up. I didn't give you permission to get out of bed. I was annoyed. When I speak, you listen, got it? Jason was sweating in pain. In this hospital, your life is my responsibility, so drop your diva attitude. I asked a nurse for a wheelchair, helped Jason sit down, and pushed him out to the back garden. I grabbed a blanket and covered his legs. I didn't know, hospital doctors also do caregiving, Jason joked. I pretended not to hear. Let's not point fingers, okay? I haven't even blamed you for making me late. We fell silent, sunbathing quietly in the back garden. The sunlight warmed us more than expected. That afternoon, Jason was discharged. I carried a box of my things. Walking out of the hospital, I watched people surround Jason, escorting him out, while I headed back to my rented room alone. There was nothing left for me there. For months on the job, now suspended without pay, I had no choice but to think about another job to survive. At the Dong Hung bar, I arrived late. This bar belongs to Nathan Chen. You can see the effort in every piece of decor. The place was elegant, really soothing. I patted Nathan on the shoulder behind the counter, then sat on the other side. He stared at me for a long moment, before pulling me into a hug. I still like you best in a white lab coat. Number 10 and Victor Liu walked out from the restroom. The four of us drank freely, laughing, chatting about everything. Victor Liu couldn't hold his liquor. Soon, he wanted to head home. Before leaving, he reminded me to attend my follow-up exam. I froze for a second. After returning from the US, I learned Victor Liu works at the same hospital. He's just in the counseling psychology department. I told number 10 and Nathan the truth, that I was suspended for a professional mistake. Now I needed a new job. Nathan thought for a while, then said, come sing at my place. You see how it is? The atmosphere is simple. Whatever people tip you, all yours. You don't have to come every day. Nathan Chen always says I have a beautiful voice. Honestly, I couldn't bring myself to refuse. I raised my glass and lightly clinked it with Nathan Chen's. Then, thank you. Mid-November is my mom's birthday. At 10 a.m., I arrived at the psychiatric hospital. While I was paying the hospital bill, I was told someone had already covered it. I nodded, but still left a little extra. I walked to the ward door, hesitating, not daring to go in. Suddenly, the door swung open. Lily Lin walked out, looking completely fed up. When she saw me, she was about to leave, but then turned back into the room. I followed behind. Inside was unusually lively. Besides my parents, my grandparents and my uncle and aunt were there too. My dad was holding my mom's hand. I don't know what he was saying, frowning. That bright, smiling face, it made my chest ache. I closed my eyes, placed the bag I brought on the table. 2 years ago, my mom was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. She was in and out of the hospital constantly back then. It wasn't until I started working that I paid her bills monthly. My mom and we hadn't seen each other in 4 years, other than obligatory holiday calls. We barely had any contact. I greeted my grandparents and my uncle and aunt, but the words Mom and Dad got stuck in my throat. I just couldn't say them. Xiao Bei is here. My mom sat on the bed, waving at me. I stood there, not moving. I went to the counter and saw someone already paid, so I added a little more. I pretended not to hear. They all turned to look out the window. The branches outside looked like they were crying. My grandfather's voice rang out. Everyone heard it. I turned to look at my mom. So, you and Grandpa made up? Zhou Mei nodded. I didn't understand things back then. I was just sick. I let out a cold laugh. I never knew a disorder could make someone abuse their own child. The room fell completely silent. I turned to Lily Lin. And you? Say something. Silence. What am I to you? For all those years, you beat me and called me immature, and Mom just says I was sick and that's it? You expect me to forgive like everyone else? You twisted my arm until it became a chronic injury. You never took care of me. When I was sick, I was just a burden to you. You forced your fake morality on me, and the funniest part, you even made everyone think you were a single mother struggling alone. You even let him just stand by while he treated me like trash, like I was his punching bag. I looked at my dad. What am I? What was I supposed to be? My turn now. You controlled my friendships. You threatened me with death to make me break up. You think one apology erases everything? Why? Enough. I reached into the bag on the table, felt around and pulled out a knife. I rolled up my sleeve and sliced from my elbow down to my wrist. Blood spilled across the floor. Everyone was horrified by what I did. Evan Lynn and Lily Lynn stepped forward, but I held the knife up to stop them. Consider this me repaying you for giving me life. From now on, I'll send money every month on time. I hope this is the last time we meet. At least now, you have people who care about you. Evan, it's not like that. My mom covered her mouth, breaking down in tears. She reached out, trying to grab me. I really know I was wrong. I stood at the hospital gate. My arm had already been bandaged. I looked up at the sun. Lily Lynn stood beside me. On the way back, she drove me home. I fell asleep without realizing it. Let me sleep a little longer. Until the sound of my phone woke me up. Lily Lynn was on a call. Her tone was full of affection. Just drop me off at the square. I can get home on my own, I said right after she ended the call. Lily Lynn held the steering wheel, eyes fixed ahead. Come eat with me. I checked my phone. I had slept for 3.5 hours. No wonder it was already dark. I followed Lily Lynn to a Hunan restaurant. We walked into a private room. I noticed Jason Song and a few others were there too. I felt a little uncomfortable. Lily Lynn never really had many friends. The others all looked at me with teasing expressions. Lily Lynn had always done whatever she wanted growing up. She never cared about others' opinions. Just as stubborn as me. She picked up the menu and casually ordered a few dishes, then tossed it back to the server. When the food arrived, I kept my head down and ate quietly. They talked about business, but most of the time, it was quiet. I looked up unconsciously, and met Jason Song's gaze. He had just recovered, still looking pale and worn out. A pair of crutches rested behind his chair. I quickly lowered my head, pretending not to see, quietly hiding my bandaged hand under the table. Lily Lynn, expression cold, put food into my bowl. A lively girl spoke up. What happened to your hand? I was caught off guard. I stammered that it was just an accident. Before I could finish, Lily Lynn cut in, self-inflicted. The whole meal made me feel uncomfortable. Finally, it ended. I said goodbye to Lily Lynn like I'd been set free. Jason Song stared at my back, lost in thought. After my wound almost healed, I went to work at Nathan Chen's bar. It was more of a lounge bar. Jason Song sat in a corner seat, watching me sit on a high stool and sing. By the time I finished one song, my shift was over. I got ready to leave. On my way backstage, a drunk middle-aged woman stopped me. She stuffed a wad of cash into my hand, handed me a bottle, mumbling something unclear. Jason Song stared intently. His eyes locked on us, silent. I tilted my head back and drank the whole bottle. I didn't want to cause trouble for Nathan Chen. I set the bottle down on the table. Not too hard, not too soft. As I turned to grab the money, the woman lunged forward and hugged me tightly. I shoved her away, threw the money straight in her face, then turned and walked away, lowering my head, apologizing to the customers watching. As I passed Jason Song's seat, I didn't look at him. Jason Song grabbed my right wrist. He looked up, threw 2 stacks of cash on the table, then drank. I pulled my hand back, looking at the 3 bottles on the table. I casually tossed my phone there, tilted my head back and drank heavily. A friend nearby said, "That's too much. If Lily finds out, she'll go all out on you." Jason Song smirked with disdain. Nathan Chen rushed over and snatched the bottle from me. I shoved him away. After finishing, I grabbed the money and my phone, said a few words to Nathan Chen and left. Jason Song stared at the table. I had taken the wrong phone. He picked up mine. The lock screen showed a photo from 5 years ago, him secretly kissing me, captured by someone else. The image was extremely blurry, but my shocked eyes were still clear. Jason Song slowly closed his eyes. His heart felt like it had just gone through an earthquake. I only realized after getting home, when the screen lit up. A woman in sportswear sat on the ground, holding a dog in her arms. It was Big Guy. My eyes instantly reddened. I reached out to touch Big Guy and the woman in the photo. Then suddenly, the phone rang. I swiped to answer. "You took the wrong phone." His cold voice came through. "Sorry." I held back my choked voice. "I haven't moved." The meaning was obvious. I immediately changed clothes, took a taxi to the apartment entrance. Jason Song was sitting on a bench, giving Big Guy water. I walked over quietly and handed him his phone, then slowly sat down, reaching out to touch Big Guy. Big Guy looked up, innocent. After a while, it seemed to remember something, struggling to stand up, wagging its tail nonstop. I hugged it, my eyes full of guilt. Jason Song gently pulled the leash. I stood up in a panic. He handed my phone back to me. I tried turning it on, it was already off. Jason Song turned his head away, not wanting me to know he had seen the lock screen, and even knew the passcode, so he could only drain the battery. The phone was out of power. I let out a sigh of relief, glad he hadn't seen my lock screen. Then I nodded. "Can I?" "No," he cut me off coldly. He picked up the water bowl from the ground, and led Big Guy back inside the complex. Big Guy walked slowly, turning back to look at me from time to time. I turned and ran as fast as I could, not wanting to make Big Guy sad. I had an appointment with Victor Liu at 2 p.m. When Victor saw me take off my mask, we went into the clinic room and sat down. In front of me were dishes I used to love back in school. But I had no appetite. I quietly told Victor that my insomnia had come back. It felt like nothing could make me happy anymore. My dad and Jaume had reconciled. He was getting along with everyone. After all these years, it felt like I was the only one left behind. Suddenly, life felt meaningless. Dying almost felt easier. Victor Lou kept comforting and advising me. He prescribed medication and sent me home. And at midnight, he assured me he wouldn't tell anyone about my condition. Ever since he found out I worked at a bar, Jason's song kept showing up, sometimes with a reason, sometimes not. When he was in a good mood, he'd ask me to drink, throwing in a few sarcastic remarks. When he was in a bad mood, he'd just sit there silently. I sent part of my earnings to Jaume and used the rest for medicine and daily expenses. Time passed quickly. At the beginning of December, the media suddenly broke the news. Jason's song was about to get engaged to the only son of the Shin group. The news spread instantly. That night, I still sang like nothing had happened. Jason didn't come to bother me either. Only after I finished, Nathan Shin found me backstage. I was curled up in a corner. He didn't dare come over to comfort me, just stood at a distance, watching me. 1 a.m. I stood outside Jason's company building. I didn't even know why I came here. I was being stubborn with myself. If I could really see Jason's song, it would be a second chance given by fate. If not, then so be it. Winter in Mountain City cut straight to the bone. I stood there in a down jacket for over an hour, shivering from the cold. Jason drove out of the parking garage and saw me standing at the company gate. Tears kept falling. His eyes darkened, his expression complicated. He stepped on the gas and drove forward. Hearing the sound, I ran over and blocked his car. Jason's song didn't expect me to risk my life like that. He jerked the steering wheel hard, made a sharp turn, and slammed the brakes. The moment he opened the door, he snapped, "If you want to die, go block someone else's car, not mine." I was still too shaken to say a word. His voice was irritated. "What are you doing outside my company in the middle of the night?" I didn't know how to begin. Seeing me like that, he slammed the car door shut and said nothing more. His attitude scared me. "I just wanted to remind you to go for a checkup." Jason's song snapped in anger. "Dr. Lin sure is responsible, huh? It's the middle of the night, Evan Lin, are you messing with me?" I took a deep breath. "You're getting engaged, right? Is it true?" Jason's song glanced at me. "What does it have to do with you?" "A little." I looked straight at him. "If you're not, I want to pursue you." His eyelids twitched slightly. "You're seriously sick. Have you lost your mind?" He slammed the door and drove off. I stood there, stunned in the street. Not long after, Jason's song turned the car around. He rolled down the window. "Get in." Hearing that, I immediately got into the car. After a long silence, Jason's song said, "I'm 26. I didn't understand what he meant. "I don't have time to waste on being pursued or dating games." He stared ahead, driving seriously. I thought he was rejecting me and felt a little down. "But I'm okay with getting married." He pressed his lips together, expressionless. "What?" I was stunned. "If you don't want to, forget it." He smirked faintly. "Tomorrow afternoon." Jason's song said nothing more. The car moved steadily down the road. It suddenly hit me. I got in without even asking where we were going. Jason's song took me back to his place. 5 years later, he no longer spoiled me. Such a hardcore tsundere. The next morning, I jolted awake. Sitting on the bed, drenched in sweat, Jason's song was woken up by me. He glanced at the clock. "It's only 6. You've slept less than 3 hours. Are you that desperate to marry me?" He meant I woke up too early. I didn't want to argue. My whole body was still trembling. I had another nightmare. That's when Jason's song realized something was wrong with me. He wrapped his arms around me from behind. I couldn't hold back my tears. "Jason? I'm sorry." "Sorry for what?" I didn't answer. My body curled in on itself. When I stepped out of the room, I realized there was someone else in the house. Jason was ladling porridge. "Mrs. May, my housekeeper." Seeing I didn't respond, he added, "Eat." I nodded to Mrs. May, then sat down at the table. Jason had already finished eating. I hadn't taken a single bite. "No appetite?" I lowered my head without answering. Mrs. May wiped her hands on her apron. "What would you like to eat?" "I'll make it." I shook my head. I just didn't sleep well. Jason didn't question it. I stood up and walked wearily to the couch. I hugged Big Guy. Mrs. May tried to help tie my hair, but Jason stopped her. He looked at me the same way he did 5 years ago, then walked over to grab his car keys. "I have a meeting this morning. I'll come pick you up this afternoon." I froze for a moment. Everything happened so fast. I forgot to bring my documents. "This afternoon, come with me and we'll get it done." After saying that, he put on his coat and left. I watched Jason close the door. Only Mrs. May and I were left in the house. I gave her a polite smile. Then I shifted my attention back to Big Guy. During that time, Professor Leonard Liu called me back to the hospital. He told me to officially return to work after New Year's Day. By the time I left the hospital, it was already noon. I felt a little dazed. In a haze, I had actually agreed to marry him. I hadn't even thought about my current condition. It was still early. I slowly walked back to my rented room, grabbed my documents, then went to Jason Song's place to wait. Traffic was heavy. By the time I arrived, Jason Song was already sitting on the couch waiting for me. He didn't say anything, just walked ahead to lead the way. The car stopped in front of the Civil Affairs Bureau. He said flatly, "Get out." I looked at him. "Have you really thought this through? Have you told your aunt?" Jason's expression turned cold. "That's not your concern. As long as it's a man, she'll be satisfied." I fell silent for a moment. Jason turned to me. "From now on, you're moving in with me. No more working at the bar. I'll transfer your living expenses every month." I nodded, then shook my head. "I'll quit the bar. But I don't need your money. I'll go back to the hospital next month." "Suit yourself." He got out of the car and tapped on the passenger door. I slowly stepped out. Inside the Civil Affairs Bureau, the staff enthusiastically guided us with the camera. "Stand a little closer. Bride and groom, smile." I forced a smile, a warmth wrapped around my waist. I turned my head. Jason Song was holding me tightly. A hint of color finally returned to my pale face. On the way back, I sat in the back seat, sneaking glances at the marriage certificate over and over. Where are we going? The sunset outside was blinding. Jason hadn't slept well last night. His mood was unstable. He didn't even bother responding to me. I didn't want to push it, so I leaned back and pretended to sleep. Soon, the car stopped in the underground parking of a large supermarket. Inside the supermarket, Jason pushed the cart. "Buy whatever you like. After that, we'll go pack your things." I stayed silent. We walked from fresh goods to packaged items, then to household supplies. I didn't pick anything, only Jason kept choosing things. I wasn't in the mood, so I just quietly pushed the cart behind him. Jason followed me back to my room. It was small, just a bed and a bathroom. I didn't have much stuff. 2 suitcases were almost everything. While I was packing in the bathroom, Jason sat on the bed and opened the nightstand drawer. Hearing the noise, I rushed out in panic. I grabbed all the medical records and pills, stuffing them into my suitcase. They were all medical files and vitamins. I felt a little tense. Jason said nothing. By the time we got back, it was late. Mrs. May had prepared a full table of food, waiting for us. I apologized and declined politely, then turned and hid in the room to unpack. "Young master, he's a little hard to read when it comes to my preferences." Jason Song took off his coat and sat down to eat. "Don't mind Mrs. May. She's just worried strangers might make things difficult for me. If he needs anything, do your best to take care of it. He likes spicy food, and he's pretty quiet." Mrs. May quickly responded. I opened the wardrobe. Inside were all of Jason Song's everyday clothes. I moved his clothes to one side, then hung mine up one by one. Big guy lay by the bed, watching me. I took out my medical records from the past few years, along with my medication. I walked into the living room, only to find Jason Song was no longer there. Mrs. May was alone in the kitchen washing dishes. I asked softly, "Sorry if I startled you, where did Jason Song go?" Mrs. May looked up from her work. "Miss has gone to the company. She said you should rest on your own." I greeted Mrs. May, then went to the pharmacy outside the complex and bought 2 bottles of vitamins. I opened them and poured the pills into the trash, then went back home. Jason Song didn't come back for several days. He had no idea about my insomnia. When Nathan Chen came looking for me, I brought Big Guy along. Big Guy hugged a glass of alcohol and shouted, "You and Jason Song got registered already?" I just treated it like a given. "That's insane, you two at the bar. We're practically enemies, always tense around each other. You haven't been singing there these past few days. I thought you got dumped or something." Nathan Chen was genuinely shocked. "I'm not going back anymore. He won't allow it." I sighed. "Then how are you going to pay your mom's hospital bills?" Big Guy asked bluntly. I thought for a moment. "When I move out, I'll get my deposit back. I'll start working next month." Nathan Chen was furious. It felt like my life was being crushed by Jason Song. Before going home, I returned the keys to my landlord. Not long after, I received a bank transfer. I opened the door. A woman stood in front of me. She was bent over, rummaging through the drawer under the coffee table. Mrs. May stood nearby and looked startled when she saw me. Seeing me stare at the living room, she quickly explained, "That's Mrs. Assistant. Did she scare you?" Mrs. May urged, "Hurry up and find it." Hearing her, Summer quickly resumed searching, avoiding only the boss's private area. Once in the car, Summer immediately took the documents to the office. She handed them to Jason Song, then stood there without moving. Jason Song didn't even look up. After hesitating for a long time, Summer said, "Ms. That man?" Only then did Jason Song look up from the documents. She raised her head to look at him. "He's my husband." Summer froze on the spot. Jason was so irritated he trembled. "That's enough. Go buy some desserts for everyone." Summer blinked. What kind of desserts? Everyone wants to see what my husband looks like. Jason paused mid-writing, thinking of that lonely figure. If I finish work today, I'll bring him out to eat with everyone tonight. Summer screamed in excitement and ran off to tell the others. Cheers erupted outside. At home, I was holding the little one, watching TV. Jason opened the door very quietly. The little one was asleep, so I didn't hear him. As soon as he walked in, he saw the covered dishes on the table. Didn't eat again? He frowned and walked into the living room. I jumped when I saw him. Jason told me to change clothes and go to a gathering with him. I closed the door. Jason then turned to Mrs. May. He didn't eat tonight? Mrs. May shook her head. I'm sorry, miss, he's been here a week. He only eats one meal a day, and not much. He's either in his room or sitting in the living room. He's only gone out once. Jason frowned even deeper. He sat on the couch, waiting for a while. I quickly came out wearing a black padded coat, with a hat and scarf wrapped tightly. Jason pulled them down. You'll be too hot. The car has heating, the restaurant too. I followed him outside. I felt nervous. Cold sweat kept forming as I walked. Jason glanced at me. They're just colleagues. It's just a casual dinner. I nodded and turned to look out the window. The two of us arrived at the restaurant. We entered the largest private room. There were over 20 people inside. Lively chatter filled the air. It all stopped the moment Jason and I walked in. The whole room erupted. They joked that we were a match made in heaven. I sat beside Jason. He handed me the menu. I shook my head. Jason looked a little displeased. He went ahead and ordered a few of my favorite dishes, then told everyone, relax, it's just a get-together, no hierarchy here. Everyone responded. I didn't eat, just took a few sips of water. The meal lasted over 3 hours. Jason was drunk to the point he could barely stand. I helped him into the passenger seat, then drove us home. Jason stayed quiet, no yelling, no throwing up. When we got to the parking lot, I checked the time, it was late. I didn't want to bother Mrs. May, so I unbuckled Jason's seatbelt. He opened his eyes groggily, then grabbed my wrist. Do you really hate marrying me that much? It feels like I'm forcing you. I didn't know how to explain. It's just, I'm not feeling well. If you're not well, go to the hospital. I looked at him. It's not that I don't want to be with you. I'm happy. Before I could finish, a rush of kisses overwhelmed me. Then I heard him murmur, Evan Lynn, I hate you. Jason woke up, already changed into home clothes. It was the weekend, work was done. He wasn't planning to go in. I was busy in the kitchen. You're up, wash up and eat. Where's Mrs. May? Jason asked. It's the weekend, I gave her the day off. I turned off the stove and served porridge. Jason had just woken up, still a bit dizzy. He ate mechanically. I still had no appetite. Half a bowl was already too much. I sat there, waiting to wash the dishes. Jason looked at me. I looked terrible, completely unhealthy. He set his chopsticks down. You don't need to do this. If you're sick, just rest. Don't worry about anything else. I just want to treat you well, I explained. My uneasiness annoyed him. You said that 5 years ago. Jason stood up and went to the bedroom. He didn't come out the entire day. After washing dishes, I took Big Guy out for a walk. The bare trees in the neighborhood had been decorated with red ribbons. They no longer looked so bleak. That's when I realized another year was ending. Back home, I hid in my room and took my meds. Then drifted into a daze and fell asleep. Jason walked in and turned on the bedside lamp. I curled up into a ball. Even in sleep, my brows were tightly furrowed. I looked uncomfortable. My wrist slipped out from my sleeve. There was a small bruise. He gently pulled my arm back, carefully tracing along it. That's when he saw it. A twisted, frightening scar beneath. He couldn't help but wonder, what exactly had happened these past 5 years? The itching on my wrist woke me up. I sat up. Jason was staring at me with a complicated expression. Since he had already seen it, I didn't bother hiding it anymore. I'm a little hungry, I said flatly. After taking antidepressants, it's either sleepiness or hunger, so unless I'm completely exhausted, I don't want to take them at all. Jason didn't force me to eat. He made 2 simple dishes and a soup. The taste was average. But compared to 5 years ago when he couldn't cook, he'd improved a lot. I quietly ate bite after bite. Jason looked worried. The day after tomorrow, I'll take you to the hospital. No need. I replied calmly. What's there to check? To see what's wrong with you. On Monday, I still went with Jason back to the hospital where I worked. Before I even came out with the report, Jason had already overheard most of it. From the nurse outside. Basically, he understood why I had suddenly left the hospital to work at a bar. It made him feel awful. By 2 p.m. we had lunch before getting the results. I wasn't surprised at all that my liver function was poor. The doctor prescribed some medication. As we passed the ER on the way out, I saw Professor Leonard Liu and greeted him respectfully. Professor. His face darkened instantly. He jabbed my forehead hard. Look at you. Losing your job over a woman? I raised my hand to shield my head. I'm going back to work soon, aren't I? Professor Liu was furious, ready to explode. Just look at your face. Anyone who didn't know better would think you fell into a sack of flour. As he spoke, he snatched my medical report. He read it carefully from beginning to end. Then he pulled out a red envelope. Stuffed it, along with the report, into my hand. Get lost. I've still got work to do. I wiped my tears. Jason bent slightly and thanked Professor Liu. The two of them left the hospital one after the other, watching Jason get into the car. I stood there by the roadside, frozen. He frowned. What are you doing? I want to go to my grandparents' place. You go ahead. I'll take a taxi. Jason lowered his gaze at me through the car window. He couldn't go with me. I felt a little awkward. I haven't told them about us getting married yet. Jason hit the gas without another word. The car disappeared from the hospital gate in no time. I waved down a taxi and gave the address. Meanwhile, Jason had a whole morning's backlog waiting. He buried himself in non-stop typing. A knock came at the office door. Without even looking, he knew it was Megan Liu. What is it? Haven't seen you in days, and I hear you're married now. And not to Eric Shen, from what I hear. Megan paused, thinking. Well, it couldn't be him anyway. Have you seen his family stock today? It's crashing. So who is it? Jason smiled faintly. Evan Lin. Megan let out a self-mocking laugh. Guess that was a pointless question. I sat in my grandparents' living room, putting up a Christmas tree. They stood beside me, watching. I didn't expect Lily Lin to be home too. I stayed for dinner with them. Before leaving, I looked at my grandparents, feeling a little uneasy. I got married. After I left with Jason. Lily Lin called Jason out to meet her. The moment he arrived, Lily stepped forward and slapped him. Furious, she demanded, "What exactly do you want? Why get involved with him?" Jason wiped the corner of his mouth, saying nothing. That only made Lily angrier. He's suffered enough his whole life. What more do you want from him? He agreed to it. I didn't force him. Jason stood steady, looking at Lily coldly. When Jason got home, I was sitting on the couch, waiting for him. He ignored me, turned and went straight to the bedroom. Sitting on the bed, he replayed Lily's words. Not even sure what he was feeling. For more than a week, Jason didn't come home. I tried opening his profile page. Aside from a photo of him with Big Guy, there was almost nothing else. From the news, I learned that after marrying me, Jason's company stock had plummeted. He hadn't been home for days. He must have been dealing with that.